and welcome to well, nearly the end of the season, but this is our favourite bit of the season where we have the premierships playoffs as well. Also, we have other playoffs as well, by the way, so I'll tell you a bit about them as we go through the show. Robbie and Mikey is on the show tonight, and Regan will be joining us very soon indeed. Don't forget, we'll be back on at 10 o'clock for our usual post-match reaction to the game between Partick Thistle and Ayr United quarter to kick-off on BBC, and you know the rest as well. So, guys, it's coming to the end of the season, Mikey, but I mean it's a kind of nervous time for all fans involved in the playoffs, including the Packet Thistle and Ayr United tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's more sort of on the United side, in my opinion. Just, I think the nerves of the fact that they were really in that title race have really dropped off, and they're not going into it with a lot of confidence will be a bit of a concern for them. I think for Partick Thistle, they're still sort of riding the high of Friday getting into the playoffs. So for me, I think it'll be a lot more pressure on Ayr United tonight. But of course, there's a lot riding on these games, and I think that's the same all the way down the pyramid. So for me, it's the best part of the season, just having so much riding on all the games, and I really do enjoy watching them.
Yeah, and of course, Robbie, we are looking forward to watching the game tonight. It's always brilliant to see two legs. Right enough, I still can't get my head around that when we have a final in Scotland, it's over two legs.
Aye, but this sort of stage of the playoffs is always exciting because it's two teams that are, in the same league as each other. They were both sort of battling. Obviously, United will feel a bit more disappointed they couldn't keep up their form for the league, but this is going to be good because, I can only imagine how the players will be feeling, but the managers as well. This isn't two very experienced managers, it's the opposite. They're two very inexperienced managers, both, I think, 39 and 40. So, it's two managers going head to head, and I'd argue their first sort of proper playoff bout. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get on.
Yeah, and of course it's going to be spicy, Michael, because it's even though it's Packet Thistle against Hibs, but you can look at it this way as well, like Celtic against Rangers in terms of Scott Brown and Whitaker, and also Mark Wilson at Celtic.
Yeah, I think that obviously it's good to see that a lot of the sort of players of the past are sort of moving into management roles. I do enjoy that sort of side of it. And yeah, I think that just going into the playoffs, I think that it gives these young managers, young coaches a real opportunity to almost make their way in the game, and I think it's very important for them. That will definitely be a driving factor for all of them involved.
Yeah, it's always funny when you see comments like this on Robbie on Facebook. Duncan Spear says, "Good luck to both teams." Well, I don't know if you know Duncan, but the aim of the game is for one team to win and one team to get beat. But yeah, I think I think I know what you mean. But thanks for watching on Facebook as well, Mike. You've got kind of like knowledge of Packet Thistle because you saw them recently on Friday night. I basically was between that game and the game at Falkirk Skiggen as well. What did you make of Packet Thistle on Friday night?
I was hugely impressed by them because I think that with the situation they were in, the amount that they were fighting for, it was very important for them obviously to get over the line. Sorry about that. But I think the three big centre backs they had really helped them in the game, and I think that they were very well structured and very well organised, which for me is very important when you go into a playoff campaign because you need those sort of strong players to get you through a game when things are maybe going against you a wee bit.
I mean, Mikey, obviously, look, obviously you don't read a game off a paper, but looking at the stats, Partick Thistle had 2 shots, none on target, and they still won the game 1-0. So, I mean, is it a case that they're a very, very well defensive team?
Yeah, I think they showed a lot of determination in the game. Obviously, they didn't really get the chance. The chance was basically made for them. But I do think that it was a very important one for Partick Thistle because you look at the way that their season's been going, it looked as though the playoffs were sort of slipping out their hands. They got that back in the end, but I think that a lot of their signings, even post-January, the likes of Sean Kelly and Josh Reid from Ross County, they have been integral to them getting playoffs because of their defensive abilities. And yeah, I just think that it's something that they really lacked at the start of the season. They were quite soft at the back, you could kind of tell. But I think some of the signings they've made have been hugely important to them getting to the stage they are. And I think that's something that can hugely frustrate Ayr United because they very much do rely on the physical presence of George Oakley. So I think that can really play into Partick Thistle's hands tonight if, of course, they get the game plan right, which there's no guarantee of.
Okay, so we have got the team news out for tonight. First leg playoff, the Premiership playoff between Partick Thistle and Ayr United. And Robbie, I believe you've got the two teams first.
Yeah, so for Partick Thistle, it's Mitchell and goal, a back three of Macbeth, Ashcroft and Turner. Megwin and O'Reilly are the two wing backs. Crawford, Flanagan and Lawless are in the midfield, and it's a front two of Fitzpatrick and Graham. For Ayr United, it's Clark and goals, a back three of Agabea, McAllister and Redding. Murphy and McMahon are the two wing backs with Dempsey and Russ in the midfield. It is McLennan and Mackenzie as number 10s right behind, of course, as Mikey mentioned, George Oakley up front.
There you go. That's our two team lines, and also we'll get a wee feeling about Ayr United now, because today I spoke to Ayr United fan, but I also worked for the media team at Ayr United. Mitchell Fegan, he was speaking to me about the game tonight, and believe you me, guys, before the interview, he was pretty nervous. Not because he's on the show, obviously, but well, maybe he was speaking to me, I don't know. But he was nervous about going to the game tonight. So here's Mitchell's take on the game tonight at Thistle. So, Mitchell, looking forward to a big game tonight for Ayr United. First of all, before we talk about the playoff game tonight, how do you reflect on Scott Brown's first season as manager of Ayr United?
I think it's been a fantastic turnaround, Michael, first and foremost. Just in terms of, when you look at the position in the league table for a start, I think we're 19 points better off than what we were at this point last season come the end of the year. Finishing third in the table. It's our second highest ever points tally in the championship in the second tier. So I think that tells you all you really need to know in terms of the turnaround that we've had under Scott Brown in his first full season. I was just speaking to you off camera there about how, in terms of attracting certain players, we've got a clear style of play now. We play high intensity football. We look to get after teams, we look to entertain the crowd, score as many goals as we can, which I think a lot of players have bought into. And it's certainly, I think, maybe the pedigree of both the manager and his assistant, obviously Stephen Whittaker as well. A lot of players want to work under those two, and I think just the way that we play in terms of attracting players it's been a lot easier this season. We've recruited really, really well. Whereas, as I said to you before, in previous seasons, maybe no disrespect to previous management teams, but we maybe would be going after a certain calibre of player and we wouldn't quite get it because we'd miss out to other clubs in the same division. So in terms of that, it's been a fantastic season.
I think from an outsider, kind of like looking into Ayr United and looking into the championship overall, obviously Ayr United would deserve massive credit for getting Scott Brown and Stephen Whittaker, a big name, plague at the top for obviously Rangers, Celtic and Scotland as well, to get them into not only a Premiership club but a Championship club as well. And as you say, that kind of like attracts players that wouldn't have came to Ayr United if, like, no disrespect, that they had maybe Lee Bullen or managers before that. But now that you've got Scott Brown and Stephen Whittaker, it's plague at the top for club and country as well.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, you mentioned Lee Bullen there, and what a fantastic job he did over the piece. Albeit it ended sourly in the end. I think he was one of the most well-liked guys around the place that you could ever imagine. Just a really, really nice, genuine guy. Got on with everyone around the club. Everyone loved him. And I think he delivered second place in his first full season in the Championship, albeit I think we scored a goal in the last minute against them against Thistle that catapulted us from 5th in the league to all of a sudden we're second again with results elsewhere. So if you look at it from that point of view, had we not got that goal and we'd only got a point that night, we would have been 5th and we'd have missed out on the playoffs. So I think maybe you need to remember that when you're reviewing that season. But I think, no disrespect to Lee Bullen, obviously did fantastically well, but certainly now we look more equipped to go up to the Premiership should we push a good challenge in these playoff matches. I think beforehand everybody kind of knew deep down, despite finishing second and despite obviously getting a straight pass through to the semi-finals of the playoffs, that Ayr had probably didn't really have the credentials at that moment in time to go up. And certainly at the moment, there's no rush from the club to say we need to go up this season, we need to go up next year. I think we're still really ahead of schedule on the chairman's overall kind of plan for the club in the future. But that being said, there's no doubt that as a fan, first and foremost, you'd absolutely love to go up and to hopefully see it in the Premiership as soon as possible, especially with the investment that's coming in both on and off the field at the moment.
But obviously you're going up to the game tonight for Hill, only a couple of hours away from the game as I'm speaking to you. What do you expect and maybe hope for the game tonight? I mean, has Ayr United got a bit of advantage because obviously the second leg is to come at Somerset Park on Friday night?
I think it's a really important factor that the second leg's at Somerset. I think that should be a huge incentive for the players that, should we get a result tonight, you take it back, should we get a result tonight, you're taking it back in front of your home fans on Friday night to go and finish the job. It's not like you're going to have to go to a hostile away venue where you're going to be under the cosh. That may be the case tonight, and that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a really physical game. We know that the pitch up there hasn't been too great all season, but the weather is looking good. At the moment. So hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a factor. But we know what Thistle are like. We know that it's going to be a really, really tough game. We haven't won there this season. We've lost on both occasions. Certainly the most recent defeat up there was a pretty poor performance by our standards. So, and obviously when you look back to the playoffs a few seasons ago, Partick Thistle beat us 3-0 at Firhill and then turned us over 5-0 at home and went out disgraced in an 8-0 defeat. So that's still very much fresh in the minds of the fans, certainly. And I'd like to think that it's been mentioned in and amongst the staff and the players this week, hopefully to give them that extra incentive. And speaking purely from a fan's point of view, obviously you'd love to go up there and win the game. You really want to try and win every game that you can. But even just to be in the tie heading into Friday, as you say, with a home advantage would be, I certainly would take that anyway.
Do you think as well that there's an extra spice to the game, as it were, tonight? Because obviously you play Partick Thistle a few times in the league this season, but you know that there's something at stake at the end of the game. Maybe not tonight, but on Friday night as well. Yeah,
I think as you say, nothing will be decided tonight because obviously it's a two-legged affair, of course. But I think you're right in saying that there is an extra bit of incentive because of something at stake. It probably will maybe affect the game. There'll be nerves from both sets of teams and both sets of players. So potentially that could have an effect on the way the game's played. But I'm still expecting a really end-to-end exciting game as it always is against Thistle, and it always is in the Championship, to be fair. But these games, they do have that little bit of added spice, if you like. The atmosphere will be great. It's to be a fantastic evening for football up at Firhill. I think Ayr are expecting to take maybe something close to 1,500 fans tonight, I think the Thistle fans will turn up in their numbers as well. So it's really going to be a fantastic atmosphere. And to be honest, as much as I'm as a fan here, I'm sat here nervous for the game. I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a great occasion.
And obviously, a scacky grant to you by saying Scott Brown against Matt Wilson. That's going to add a bit more space to it as well, because obviously two Celtic players going up. Yeah, no. What I was going to say was it's going to add a bit more space because Scott Brown's going up against Matt Wilson.
Yeah, you're right in saying that. Obviously, that former Celtic connection, obviously played together at Parkhead for a while. Definitely will, and I think Scott Brown will be determined to get one over both Mark Wilson and Brian Graham, because obviously in their first game in charge against us, we were up there and we were defeated comfortably, and we never really laid a glove on Thistle that day. So I think that will hopefully be fresh in the manager and the assistants' minds. And I think, although you say it as a bit extra spite, the incentive's there. You know, we're playing for a place in the top flight. At the end of the day, okay, you got to take it one game at a time, but the overall incentive isn't there. You've got to take one game at a time and just see how far we can go.
There you go. That was Mitchell Fagan talking to us this afternoon before the game, and I'm hoping to have another catch up with him, Robbie, before Friday's game at Somerset Park as well.
Yeah, I mean, they spoke very well. Obviously, you know, they're going away. I think that's always better. I think you always want to be away first in a two-legged affair. I think that always sort of works in your favour. Look, they'll be getting up there with confidence. I think he said it was over 1,500 fans making the trip up. I know Partick Thistle posted that they've sold out one of their stands as well, so it's going to be a great atmosphere and it should be a brilliant game as well.
Mikey, that's what I like about the championship games, because the atmosphere has been amazing as well. I mean, I think about the Falkirk fans 2 weeks ago, was it, when they went to Thistle and they sold out one of the stands at Thistle, and I think that will be the same tonight for Ayr United.
Yeah, they're a very passionate bunch in the championship. You know, the atmospheres are always very good. From especially away fans, I think home atmospheres can be quite flat at times, but I do think the away support for the championship has been excellent across the board this season. And yeah, Ayr United are going to have to, obviously the fans are going to have to play their part tonight, because you can assure one thing, and that's that Partick Thistle will be up for it, because they've got history of doing really well in the sort of championship element of the playoffs.
Robbie, I just wanted to bring this comment up in Hasbro Scrum as a way now, but basically he made a comment saying, obviously this is for another show as well, because we can spend hours on this, but he says, I just wish the top 4 teams could go up under league reconstruction, well, as we kind of know, well, it's still kind of ongoing, but at the moment it doesn't look like that way, but it would make more sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously there has been news about a bigger potential championship, League 1 and League 2. So, I mean, like, you're right though, we could spend us talking about it on the actual game. I mean, in terms of the playoffs, I like the way the playoff system's done that. Especially this round anyway, when you know it is Partick versus Ayr. It's a really good feature, I think, in my opinion anyway. The championship team's always at a disadvantage when they go to play the premiership team. But, I mean, you look at Partick Thistle, they'll be nervous for this because, especially the fans, they've had recent heartbreak in the playoffs. You know, it's no long ago they lost to Ross County after being 2-0 up after the first leg. So they know what it's like to be in the playoffs. So that I think Ayr were in the playoffs a couple of years ago as well. So both sort of teams know, but I think Partick Thistle just have that wee bit extra heartbreak because they looked quite good against Ross County and ended up losing. So they'll know that this could be a pretty big chance to get back up there.
Good evening to Anglo McDonald watching the show on Facebook as well. He says, come on, Ayr, That's what I like about it. A wee bit of banter in the chat tonight before the game. But Mikey, about the game Robbie was talking about last season at Ross County. I mean, I'd done the show that night, and I mean, I don't know if you can remember the game, but Packet Thistle could have won that game 4-0 up for Hill. Millions of chances, but do you think that will still be on the Packet Thistle players' minds and supporters going into tonight's game?
Are you talking about the one two seasons ago?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think the football moves very quickly, and I think that Partick Thistle then went to Ross County away the following season in the Scottish Cup and beat them 3-0. So I don't think that'll play much into it. I just think that in the early stages of the playoffs, Partick Thistle have got the experience there. Ayr United, obviously, we do look at the Partick Thistle Ayr game from a couple of years ago. It's almost a carbon copy of Ayr United or Partick Thistle and Ayr going up against each other, and Ayr got hammered across two legs. And I think that's going to be, I don't know if that'll play on the players and fans' minds, but I do think that there's a potential that Ayr will want to sort of get some sort of revenge in a sense for that, because I do think that was one of their good chances to go up, because for me, momentum going into the playoffs is absolutely crucial, and that's why I'm more leaning towards one side for this. And I just think that Ayr had some momentum going into that playoff campaign, and they basically just got the Ayr completely knocked out of them from those two games. So I do think that there's a bit of sort of frustration lingering on from that. But for me, Partick Thistle, they're going to go into this game and they're high on confidence, and I don't think anything else will really play into it. I think that they'll just look at Ayr United as a bit of a wounded animal at the moment, and I think that they're there for the taking.
Robbie, see from a Packet Thistle point of view, right? Obviously, I was speaking to Mitchell about Scott Brown and you know all the rest of it, Matt Wilson as well. But from a Packet Thistle point of view, this will be a big night for Matt Wilson as well, because obviously they've got this game tonight and the game in Friday night. But I think if he get through this and get him up to the Premiership, it might be up against Brendan Rodgers that season. But on the same breath, are you not surprised that Packet Thistle has not appointed a manager?
Well, I mean, I think Mark Wilson's obviously, we know him mostly after then, Clyde One and all the other nonsense that he does. I think it'll not just be a big night for him, but it'll be a big night for, the captain, the player, the manager, the women's manager, the kit man. He could probably do every job at Partick now, to be honest, Brian Graham.
The mascot.
Obviously, I mean, he's been, for what I've seen, I can't remember what game it was, I've seen one of his goals. He's a very composed player at the front of the pitch, he's clinical, he can score goals, so I think it'll be a big night for him as well. But like the aim for Partick Thistle will be to get up the Premiership, because in my opinion, obviously, you're not a Premiership team until you're there, but I almost think a Partick Thistle at a Premiership, the same as I've fought for years, Falkirk with a Premiership team, it's just that name, it's, the history, and especially with Falkirk. So I think someone like a team like Partick Thistle, and especially Mark Wilson, will be eager to go at the Premiership, because, I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if Mark Wilson's favourite to get the job full time or no, but he'll be looking to try and go up there and then see if he can progress on.
Are you surprised, Mike, that Thistle hasn't got a permanent manager yet?
In a sense, yes, but to be honest, with the run the Partick Thistle are on, I think they're top of the league in terms of form in the last sort of 5-10 games. I don't see why you would sort of disrupt that in a sense, because as I said, going into playoffs with the momentum is the key thing for me. And unfortunately, I think that although I don't think that Mark Wilson and Brian Graham will be the managerial team next season, if they do a good job and they get them up to the Premiership, then they'll certainly be in the conversation. And I mean, realistically, for Brian Graham, the best case scenario is, with the job that he's done for Partick Thistle, the multiple jobs he's done for them, I think the best step for him, well, in his sort of case, is that the next step will be being the manager. And if he can get up to the Premiership, then he's got a real chance of getting that. And in a sense, I'm not surprised, because, as I said, why would you change something if it's working? And if they don't go up, absolutely, I think they'll bring in a manager. But with the way things currently are, with the interim job that they've both done, I don't see why you'd disrupt that at all and change it. So I'm not surprised at that.
Listening
And
to
that,
Mark Wilson,
yep.
sorry, I was just going to say, listening to Mark Wilson, he's loved, well, for what I've heard, he's really loved his time as Thistle sort of manager now. Do you think if they went up and they offered Brian Graham the job, do you think Mark Wilson would want to be number 2?
I'm not sure, because I think that he's trying to make his way in the game, and if he goes up, then there will be sort of more sort of importance around his name, if you will. I think that there'll be clubs in the lower leagues especially looking at him, and I do think that if he gets offered a lucrative job in sort of lower Championship or League One, possibly a Queen's Park, something like that, then you do look at that and say that he probably would rather be the manager for an upper League One or a lower Championship team rather than be the backup to a Brian Graham at Partick Thistle as the manager. And especially if there's a new manager coming in at Thistle, I don't think he'd want to work as number 2 under them. So if he does go up and he gets offered the number 2 role, I don't think he'd take it. And especially if another manager gets offered the role, I definitely don't think he'd take the number 2 job. I think he'll be looking for jobs elsewhere.
I thought United guys, even though it was it's a big night for Partick Thistle, because as we were saying, Mark Wilson and Brian Graham is going to put his face in the wind, even though Brian Graham's got a lot of jobs at Thistle. I think he's got a lot of jobs, but apparently he's not selling the pies as of yet. I've heard a rumour. And sweeping the toilets, I think he hasn't got that job yet either. Late enough, who would? After a game of football. But from my Ayr United point of view, Mikey, this is a big game for Scott Brown. Obviously, you would have a bit of an interest because I can ex-Hibby and all that. But I mean, what a season that he's got with Stephen Whittaker. I mean, just getting them in this position at the moment, and they're only a few games going up to the Premiership.
Yeah, obviously there is that sort of connection there with Hibs, more so Celtic, obviously. But I just think that if you look at the way that things have gone recently under Scott Brown and obviously Stephen Whittaker as well, I struggle to see how they get up, especially considering if they do win this tie, the next game they've got is potentially what will be Livy if they win this, and then after that they'll play 11th in the Premiership. I just don't see a world in which they do it, although it'd be good to see. It's been 37, 38 years since they were last in the Premiership. It would certainly be a breath of fresh air to see 2 predominantly Championship League One sides over the last decade make that step into the Premiership, when we're so used to the likes of Dundee United coming down and coming back up every season. So yeah, I do think that if Ayr can do it, there's a lot of excitement there for the neutral, because as I said, it's such an unknown. From a personal perspective, having gone away to them with Hibs this season, the atmosphere that can be produced there is brilliant. So I'd love to see a team like Ayr United up. I just don't see a world in which it happens, because as I've said multiple times now, the momentum you take going into the playoffs often does carry over, and we've seen that a lot over the last few years. If you look at the likes of Ayr United a couple of years back, I don't think they were doing too great. Obviously, they got the win, they got them into the playoffs, but I think leading up to that, they weren't doing too great. They went out straight away, and I just think if you're looking at it going into these playoffs, I just can't see it happening, because obviously if you look at the recent form for Ayr United, they've lost 5-0 to Livy, and there's been multiple games in which they've really slipped up. So yeah, although I'd love to see them get a good result at some point, I just can't see it happen.
I know that, Mikey, speaking to Mitchell before we've done the interview, I don't know if anybody is watching knows about this as well. Possibly Anglo on Facebook, a big Ayr United fan, but apparently Ayr United, the owner of Ayr United, is pumping a lot of money into Ayr United, and they're in the middle of building a training ground as well, right next to the stadium. So that must be a good thing.
Yeah, it will be. I think that obviously we've seen with the new stand that they've built, we've seen with the training ground, and also just a lot more investment into the squad recently. I think in years gone by, players like George Oakley, would they have gone to Ayr if they didn't see the project there? No. I think that obviously with the way that Ayr finished last season, obviously they did quite well because their form was alright at the end of last season. But if you look at last season as a whole, it was a complete sidestep for George Oakley when he was linked with the likes of Partick, Thistle and some of the lower Prem sides. So it was an odd move at the start, but you do see with a young manager, a young exciting sort of project there, you can see why these players are moving, and you can only see that being a positive in the future, especially with the likes of Lenny Agbear going on loan from Celtic, who I say could certainly do a job for a team like Ross County or Dundee in the Premiership. So it is obviously getting those connections there. They're getting a lot of money invested in, and it's a positive project that they're building.
And I suppose as well, Robbie, something else I said to Metro as well about Scott Brown. It's a good PR exercise for, well, first of all, Ayr United to take a punt on Scott Brown and Stephen Whittaker, because even though Scott Brown was the assistant to Stephen Glass at Aberdeen, the less said about that, the better for Aberdeen fans watching this. And if I'm not mistaken, this is Stephen Whittaker's first coaching role. He might have been at Rangers before, but I'm not very sure. But yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to kind of like attract kind of like players to Ayr United, Robbie, that they've got kind of like Scott Brown and Whittaker.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's always a risk appointing an experienced young manager. It can always go the other way, but I think, the board would be more than happy with the season that Scott Brown's had, even if they don't make it through the playoffs. They've got some big names in there. I look at Curtis Main, one player that's been benched in particular that really interests me is Jay Henderson, obviously a former Sutton player, but his record this season's been really good. I think he's got nearly 20 goal contributions all season, so to have him on the bench is, well, obviously Brown will know better than us why he's there, but maybe he can be an impact player. Obviously Oakley's been mentioned. You've got Jake Casey, who used to be in the Premiership, so they've got a lot of former, Premiership experienced players. It's a really solid team. It's a team that looks to be progressing. As you've mentioned, the board seem to be putting a lot of money into their project, so it's only really gone my way. I'm excited to see the future for it.
And I know like Reagan has joined us now, but I know that Reagan goes around to Thistle now and again to see his second team in Glasgow. As well, we all know who your first team is, and it's not Queen's Park.
I'm making no bones about it, Michael. Come on, the Partick Thistle tonight.
Yep.
I think it'd be great for the town, it'd be great for the local area, and I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully a nice Partick Thistle win, and hopefully another successful player run for Partick Thistle.
And of course we were. I was just talking to the guys before you come on about Mark Wilson. It's a big game for him. Big couple of games, but starting tonight against Ayr United and Scott Brown.
Oh, it's a big game for them. The mushroom. He's going. It's a big match because potentially they could. Brian Graham and Mark Wilson could potentially become the brand new managers of Partick Thistle. So I think for these two it'd be great. I know he's been getting slagged on air a lot from from DL and other channels, but I mean, I think it'd be great for these guys to get a job because how often is it that we see a young Scottish manager and we like to kind of down them and whatever else, but I think it'd be great for them to get in.
Just talk to the guys as well if we come on air. Are you not surprised that Partick Thistle hasn't appointed Matt Wilson and Brian Graham at the moment?
Well, I've got a wee sneaky suspicion it might be somebody else, but I can't say who I think it'll be because that might give away. But I don't think it'll be those guys. It might be those guys if they win the playoff, but for what I've heard, I don't think it'll be those guys. It'll be
and maybe just to back you up, Reagan, is it Robbie's best pal?
Who's that?
That gives the game away. You know, so yeah, I'll just leave you with that for now, right? And
Who Robbie's best pal is? I thought it was you for a second. Are you joining Partick Thistle's
I've not
back?
got any best pals. You should know that by now, Reagan. They're all
Michael,
enemies to me.
Mike, I know we were talking about the sort of league reconstruction stuff, and I don't want to go into it too much because we could spend hours. There has actually just been an article revealed online about the sort of playoffs going forward for the championship. It's really interesting. They look like they want to cut it back to only one game in the sort of playoff system.
Oh,
And it would be the highest placed team would be at home, have the home advantage in the playoffs, so it would be pushed back to one game. And it would be the higher team to sort of stop fixture congestion. So that's some pretty interesting news that would look to go into place for the 2026-2027 season.
Aye, Robbie, I did hear there was going to be a sort of an announcement this week regarding reconstruction. So, has there been an announcement in terms of what they're thinking about the league?
Yeah, so it looks like they want to try and change the championship to I think a 12 or 14 team league instead of the 10. And the playoff system, again, as I said, would be, so if it was in place right now, Ayr United, it would be one leg and it would be played at Ayr United's ground since they finish higher than Partick.
Oh, there you go, aye. And
They
that's
just
why
don't know what they just don't know what they're doing, do they? They just seem to try and change everything and do it the wrong way every single time.
Robbie, what about the premiership? Is there any on that? Because I think it'd be amazing to get a 12, a 14 team league. Sorry.
No, I think the one thing we heard out of the SPL hearing is they don't want to change it in the Premiership. It wants to stay a 12
No,
team
I think,
league.
well, I tend to disagree with them. I think it's a bit a tad boring. I know we're on here and we try and dress it up as much as possible, but I think if you're trying to attract more people into the game, I think if you're playing the same team four times a season, it can be a bit boring at times. But that's their opinion. But I'm interested to know you guys' thoughts. I know this is a championship show, but did you see a certain journalist, Robbie, in the past couple of hours that does another football show mentioned that John McGlynn may be going to Hearts?
I have seen that actually. I hear.
I mean, Robbie, I don't really take this particular person particularly serious at times because he makes himself a bit of a joke, but I don't actually know if he's just trying to play with Hearts fans or whatever else, but because he did that before with a lot of things and it's not happened.
I mean, look, the interesting thing with John McGlynn is, I think Hearts have. Well, there was also another article published as well a couple of days ago saying that Hearts were looking at a man in Scotland to be the next manager with league experience. So, I mean, obviously, I think McGlynn's going to be some sort of on the list anyway, a managers. But I don't, in my opinion, I don't see McGlynn ever taking. I don't know why he should. He's worked really hard at Falkirk to get them back out of the Premiership, and I think he deserves a fair crack at it.
I know this is a championship show again, Michael, but have you spoke about the potential, the Brighton chief executive potentially putting a major stake into Hearts?
Well, that's a massive story as well. But yeah, I don't know about you guys very quickly, but I don't know how you guys feel about that. Obviously, we'll speak a bit more about that in Friday, but just scratching the surface and that one. I know Mikey might be laughing all the way to the bank after that. Because from a Hibs kind of point of view.
Well, we can only hope that it's a similar situation to Romanov. That's all I'll say.
Robbie?
I mean, on paper, I mean, I don't see the downside to this. Obviously, I've not read too much into it, and I don't know the full terms of what Hangman actually wants to put the money into Hearts for and the sort of reasons. But on paper, it doesn't seem like. If I'm a Hearts fan, I'm not complaining at this sort of news.
So yeah, going back to the game tonight, guys. Before we finish up, have you got a score prediction for the game at Thistle for Thrills tonight? Just because I had my teeth in there, Robbie.
I'm gonna go 3-1 to Partick Thistle.
Sorry, Reagan.
I'll say 2-0 to Partick Thistle. What the Jags?
Mikey.
Well, funnily enough, I was going to say 3-1 and I was going to change it to 2-0, but now I'll have to go with 3-0 Thistle. So even though that's not my first choice, I'll go with 3-1. 3-0, sorry.
3-0, and we'll be back at 10 o'clock with the post game show, and and Robbie is going to now kill me because of what I put in the chat to him earlier on. So yeah, so if you don't see me again, it's been nice knowing you in the past 2 seasons as well. But yeah, further than that, we'll be back at 10 o'clock after the game at Thistle between Partick Thistle and Ayr United.
You're watching all the build-up and reaction to the Scottish Premiership playoffs. Partick Thistle, Ayr